it's going to be a little eye-opening, I think, as we talk to Dr. Ruth. You know, I have a new saying, you think you're so enlightened until you talk to Dr. Ruth. And and certainly when she's in the house, you know, we all sit up a little straighter. So she's going to just talk about what cognitive distortions are. And then the four of us will share from our generational perspectives. If you missed last time and you missed our individual stories, it's now on our new YouTube channel. And sharing is important because this is how we get this message out to the different generations, commenting, liking, you know, really making that channel come to life. So Dr. Ruth is going to get us started. By the way, she is not the sex doctor. Well, I don't know. Are you? We could really expand this whole audience.
I don't advertise that piece. Nope.
All right. Well, please get us started. What are we all in for with this cognitive distortion?
Well, first of all, yes, like Lisa said, do put what you think a cognitive distortion is in the chat. We all have cognitive distortions. Cognitive distortions are thoughts that are distorted. They're irrational. They're not accurate. And there are several cognitive distortions, but I'm just going to highlight probably 3 today that are pretty common with us going through estrangement. The thing about cognitive distortions is they directly affect our mood. And if we aren't already having some anxiety or depression, having a cognitive distortion will lead to anxiety and or depression. So you want to try to be aware and identify what your cognitive distortions are and do what you can to work on those. And it takes some time. It's nothing you can fix just on the spot and it's done. It's something you have to practice. So I'll give you some examples so this will make more sense. 3 of them that I'm going to highlight today are the black and white thinking, and catastrophizing, and then another one, the should statement. So I'll start with black and white thinking. And black and white thinking is when it's an all or nothing thought. It's something has to be this way or that way, and there's no in between. You cannot see the gray in something. And just because you have a black and white thought about something doesn't mean you have that about everything, but the things that you're most passionate about, probably you're going to tend to have some black and white thinking. So in estrangement for black and white thinking, if you have a thought that my child has estranged from me, everybody's going to estrange from me. Every child that age, every adult person that age is going to estrange from me. So you can't see that you do have relationships with other people that are that adult child's age, and you might tend to even start to stay away from people that are your adult child's age, because you think they're going to estrange from you, and it can make you sad, and it can make you anxious about being in a situation. I know I'll just real personally, quickly share this personal example is, I'm estranged from my daughter, and I work in my church youth group. And when all this was going on, I thought, I can't work there because they're, if my daughter's estranging from me, they're all going to estrange from me. So that was something I had to work through, and learn to see the gray, that I can't have relationships with other people, and they're not going to estrange from me. So another one is catastrophizing. Catastrophizing is when you make something worse than it is, and we tend to do that. And that can kind of mix with the example I just gave you that I went through, that everybody's gonna estrange from me. But catastrophizing is making something much worse than it actually is. And sometimes, like a physical example I'll give you, if you feel like you have a headache one day and it's getting worse, you might think, I have a brain tumor and I'm going to die. So that's an example of what catastrophizing is. You're making it way worse than it really is. You will likely just have a headache maybe because of the weather or something like that, but it will pass. So in estrangement, you can imagine, maybe try to come up with your own thoughts about then thinking how this estrangement has affected your thinking. The should statements are my favorite, I think, because that's something I worked a lot on when I was working with a lot of people that we intensely worked with people in a community mental health center daily. And for years, it was a 2-year program everybody had to go through. That's how long it takes to work on this kind of statement. A should statement is when you're saying to yourself or to someone else, well, you should not do that. Or if you're saying to yourself, I should be the one that does whatever, fill in the blank. When you have a should statement, you're setting an expectation that something has to be a certain way. And if it's not, you're a failure, or that person has failed you if they didn't meet that expectation that you have of them. It's really hard. This is something I think is the hardest one, the should statements, because everybody that I've come across in my life says the word should. You want to try to, first of all, you may have to have a partner that's going to be your accountability partner and help point out to you when you just said a should word and made a should statement. They will help you stop and think about substituting that word with the word wish. That's usually a pretty good word to substitute. So if you say, thinking back maybe as a parent, I should have spent more time praying with my daughter, for example. I have set up myself to have failed. And because I didn't do that, I failed. If I say the word should. If I substitute it and say, I wish I would have prayed more with my daughter, it takes the burden off. It doesn't make you feel so heavy and so depressed. It helps you get to a point where you can accept what happened. It is what it is, and maybe not stay in that moment so much and feel depressed about it, what you didn't do. Because generally we think back about things we wish we would have not done or we wish we would have done, and we can't change them. It's in the past. So try to substitute the word wish with the word should. And one thing we say in our field when we're working with people is don't be shouldy. So might be something you could write and post on your refrigerator to remind you to pay attention to the word should. But those are the 3 highlights that I wanted to make today.
Yeah, and that's just a section. I mean, there are more. Yeah. We're only getting into this for an hour, and thank you. Regarding the headache, you have a little headache. You go to Google, and all of a sudden, you've got 10 other diseases, right? I mean, it's just what we do to ourselves, and the shoulds I think is a big one. Anytime we feel like we should do something, and how to navigate that. Thank you.
Yeah. If I would recommend one cognitive distortion to work on, it would be that one to try first. And it's going to take practice. And you're going to have somebody help you point out that you're saying it, because it's so automatic. We don't even know we're doing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So conditioned for our lifetime. So conditioned, all of us. Yeah. All right. So, and the aim today, and Shane said, misperceptions of a situation based on beliefs, biases. Absolutely. Absolutely. Cheryl, you're muted.
Yep. I'm the boomer, so. Hi, I'm Cheryl. And so for me, so just any new terminologies, cognitive distortions, gaslighting, all of those things. I break it all down into just simple terms. And just to let you know, with gaslighting, my husband now, because it comes up in conversation all the time. Oh, that one's trying to gaslight. So he keeps saying, oh, they're limelighting me. They're limelighting. So just to tell you, like what us older people have to do to get through these things. But so the cognitive distortions, to me, it really, I look at it because I know I've heard this in dealing with my estranged child, is very black and white thinking. So, and I know it's all or nothing. And then the catastrophizing. So when she estranged herself, I called my older daughter, the one that we always have open communication. And I don't know if I said, and I was kind of walking on eggshells with her at that time, the older one, because I was thinking, oh my God, she'll leave me too. If I say something wrong or something she doesn't like. And so she did make a very important point. And she said, Mom, if you're upset with me, you tell me. If I'm upset with you, I'll tell you. And I will never do that, because it's a very abusive form to do that to someone. And I would never do that.
And when you were saying that, I think something that came up for me is like, I had to put the blame on my mom when I was estranged. And it was easier to blame her for everything she did wrong, and just made me feel justified for not talking to her. So it was easy just for me to, I don't know if I was blowing things out of proportion or what I was doing to make it easier on my guilt, but it was easy to blame her for every wrong thing that she did for me, because then I was justified. Then I could just feel better about the decision I made of not talking to her. So I found everything in the history of what my mother did wrong to justify me not talking to her, because I needed it at that point. I just needed to feel like I had freedom from her, and I was right for not talking to her.
Wow. That's so helpful to hear. It's so helpful to hear from both sides of this equation.
Yeah. I also definitely agree with Aaliyah, because I did nitpick on everything that my mom did, because it felt easier than just reflecting and being like, okay, what does this even mean? Because it feels really good to be angry, and self-reflection doesn't necessarily always feel the best. And it's not saying that there was either one person to fully blame for the situation and how it played out, but being able to actually self-reflect might have been able to save our relationship before it was too late.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was right there with you when you said you didn't know what cognitive distortion was on Thursday. I didn't say anything. I was half asleep because I was already in bed and stuff. But I didn't know what it was either. And Jillian said it, and I was like, I'm just going to go Google this so I don't look like I don't know what.
Me too.
So if anybody else is on the call, I'm a millennial, and I had no idea that there was even a definition for this. So it's just very enlightening to reflect and see what I went through, because I was really a should person, because I had a single mother. She was always gone. So I felt like I needed to take on all the responsibilities, that it all fell on me, that I was now the head of the household, because I should do this and I should do that. I need to do this. It felt like a lot of pressure on me growing up. So I think that's why I craved that freedom so much from my mother, is because I just felt like I had to take on the world, and I didn't feel like I could do it and take care of her. I felt like especially as I got older and I saw decisions she was making, I felt like I should be taking care of her. I still feel like I should take care of her today. I still have that deep down responsibility, because I know that she hasn't made the best decisions for her life. And so now that I know how to make more responsible decisions, I feel like I should be there taking care of her, especially some of the guilt trips I get. I moved to San Diego to be with you, and you moved away right when I moved here. And I was like, well, you should have moved here a lot sooner. you should have been here already. I asked you 5 years ago to sell your house and to move to San Diego, and you chose to just move here now. And so those things still till today, I have to like, and just be like, I don't know, just breathe through it and just love her. Like, remember the love, and just remember, like, I'm here as your daughter as I can be. I'm showing up in the ways that I know how to. And I think I always have to fall back to just love and compassion and just breathing through what she says.
Yeah, because you can't save the world. You can't, I mean, we can't save anyone else. It's up to them, you know, absolutely. Yeah, totally. I just am relating to everything that you guys are saying as a parent, but also as a child, because I was my mom's therapist. I think I may have shared that last time, from a very young age. And she just unloaded on me for many years, you know, talking about the challenges with my dad and her work and everything else. And I really remember feeling like I was responsible for that and helping her and, you know, her happiness and everything else. And she had nobody to talk to, you know, and this and that. So I was going to carry that burden. And I think how I've probably put it on my kids was, you know, with my youngest daughter, who's estranged, was just such a happy-go-lucky child, that it was just so easy to be around her. And even if I wasn't aware of it, probably energetically, I just unloaded so much on her, because she had me as her mom, but she also had her older sister as her parent. And so I think she really felt the weight of everything that happened within the family was probably her responsibility, because she was just such an easygoing type sponge person. So yeah, I see both sides of it.
I think, like, at least reflecting on like my relationship with my mom, it would be like a mixture of all three, where I was thinking in black and white, like it's either I'm here to protect her, as I spoke on like the abuse that I went through at her husband's hands in our previous session. Like, I was either here to protect her, or he was gonna hurt her. She was either choosing me or she was choosing him. And then in my brain, I also was like, okay, if I leave, it's gonna be so bad. He's gonna like end up killing her, and like then I'm gonna have to carry that guilt with me. And one that like I kind of want to touch on as well is just like, I feel that there would be a lot of like personalization happening as well, where like everything was my responsibility and I should be doing this, especially like as we've been talking about. I've kind of noticed that each of us in our generations have really taken on that burden of making the generation before us happier. And I'm not sure if that's because, like, you know, everybody sees the other one as like, oh, they're ruining the planet, you know, but I think that we all shared really similar experiences, and we're all here like kind of seeing that and being like, oh dang, like, okay, we all really are just one and the same, all looking for freedom and to be loved.
Well, and maybe now looking at the previous generation, we see it differently. You know, we could very much see it differently. We can see it differently from a younger point of view, because we don't have the history of the pain, the trauma. You know, we don't have quite the history yet, so we're not as heavy from a younger standpoint. But then from an older standpoint, now we have the wisdom, because now we can look back on it. And I think that's so much what our generations are doing right now, is just, you know, oh, I just can't relate to these young kids, the way they're thinking, and this black and white thinking, and everything's my fault. And then the younger generation saying, and I won't speak for you guys, I want you to jump in, saying, yeah, but we see how you screwed up.
Right. And that's what I was like thinking with my mom. I'm always like, especially as I was studying child development and I was pursuing my career as being a teacher and a director. And I always was like, my mom could have loved me better, and she should have loved me like this, and she shouldn't have like spanked me, and because I just was learning a whole new way to teach and love and upbring children, that's where a lot of my anger came from. And it just justified me not talking to her because of the way I feel like I should have been raised versus the way I was raised. But through that journey of actually putting myself through school, then I realized like how we develop as humans and how I was able to reflect on like, she did the best she knew how to do from how she was raised. And then I remembered the stories that she would tell me on how she was raised. And then I was like, wow, she didn't know any better. And so I think that's where we do have to get to, is just reflecting and hearing and seeing. And we have been provided a lot of information about our parents, but it's so easy to just like go back to that should. And it's like, but you can't do that, one, to yourself or to that other person. And that's like my biggest, I think, cognitive distortion as we're going through this, just like that emotional reasoning that we have to do with ourselves.
Yeah, the self-talk. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What you just said reminded me, like, we didn't have the internet. Okay, I had 2 books. What to Expect When Expecting, What to Expect the First Year. What to expect the first year. It's like, what happens after the first year? That was it. That was all there was. So, to your point, it's just, we did the best with the tools that we were given, most of those handed down from our parents. And I think that's what's been so hard for my generation, and probably Cheryl's too, is that we really thought we did it so differently. My generation was the latchkey kids. We went home alone and we did everything alone, and we fed ourselves. We did our homework. We were always alone. You didn't get to do after school activities because there was nobody to pick you up or drive you. You rode the bus home, and that was that. So with my kids, I was there for them. I did my whole life, my whole career, everything was running around them, because I didn't want them to have my life. And so that's what I think has been so hard for us, is we thought we did such a better job based on what we were given. And I think probably every parent feels that way. They know their childhood and how much more horrendous it was, so they feel like they just did a better job. And now, wait, what? We're not being appreciated and acknowledged for that, even though we were for many years. All the Mother's Day cards, you're the best mom ever. I mean, just we got that validation for many years, and then that rug got pulled out from underneath us. Yeah,
I have a good little story about that. So here I am, I grew up in a somewhat abusive family, and thought I made it out okay. And lo and behold, I marry a much more abusive man. And, but because it was only directed at me, so I thought, what did I know? I did the best I could with the tools that I had. Obviously now I know so much more. And my oldest daughter is married, and now she has a little son. So we're on a call the other day, and of course what I'm not supposed to do is discuss my estranged daughter, but I found out that she had recently planned on going to Israel, and she would have been there very close to the time that the war broke out. And I would have had no way of knowing. And my sister found out because she messaged my sister told me. So I immediately called my oldest daughter and I said, did you know? And she gets very uncomfortable, and it's not advisable to put them in the middle like that. But I was so distraught because as a mother, that's a feeling you can't stop. You always think about the safety of your children. So a few of the things she was telling me and, got me upset. And so I think our voices, mine raised a decibel, and she's the quietest, I think I told you before, quietest, very few words. And hers raised just a tiny decibel. And her little son, my little grandson, he's 8 months old, started crying. So immediately she said, I'm so sorry for yelling, telling her son, mommy shouldn't do that, da, da, da. And I'm thinking, oh boy, like, and I know I yelled. I was a single mother, escaping this abusive person and having to work my rear end off to provide. And I would come home from work and yell. And something that before Dr. Ruth, what you said today, I would have said, I shouldn't have. And I wish that I hadn't. And, but you see, each generation learns from the last, and now she's very cognitive of that and tries to make it a point, not to yell. The other thing she told me about a month ago, is because she knows her father was an alcoholic. And she said something to me. She said, when my son gets to be in his early teens, or, the time that it could be where he would be thinking about having a drink or drinking, she said, we're both going to sit him down and tell him that there's actually alcoholism on both sides of the family. So then she explained to me, on how it was on her husband's side as well. And she said, but we're going to sit him down and we're going to tell him, this is da da da. And, and so he really shouldn't go out and drink and da da. And I discussed it with Lisa, and we're like, yeah, good luck with that. Like, it's just, the thinking that I'm going to do so much better than my mom, and it's going to be this, this, and this, but it's not always how it turns out.
Yeah. And then they find out that he's been drinking since he was 12, and there goes that planning. I mean, because, we're not dealing with circus animals. We're dealing with these little beings that are ultimately designed for freedom, for a reason, for that purpose of individuating on this planet, just how we're all designed. Yeah, that's so true. But bringing up the global issues that are going right now, that's why we just don't have it easy. We're living in just a time that's just not easy for anyone, regardless of how emotionally balanced you think you are. We're just living in a time that isn't easy. So for you, Jillian, and even Aaliyah, how do you feel about that, the worldview right now, and just everything that's going on from your generation?
I think that everybody is so angry and lost right now that it's just kind of compounding. And then there's like people like me, like in Gen Z, who are now personalizing all of the problems of the world, like really taking it on as if it's our own, as if we could fix things, kind of like what we have done with our moms, or like with anybody in our lives that we see struggling, and we feel like they should be doing this or they should be doing that. Like, I know better. I'm going to fix them. I'm going to save them. So it feels really scary, because it feels like nobody remembers the history of in the world and how things have gone. And I think that just because of all the anger that surrounds everybody right now, it's not going to be an easy task to try and like be like, hey, we don't have to actually like hate each other all. We can fix things together. We are so much stronger united.
But do you feel your generation feels that? Or, I mean, it's the right thing to say on this call. Thank you. It makes us feel good. But as a whole, do you feel like your generation really understands that? And I didn't in my 20s. I mean, I did the same thing. I mean, my parents knew absolutely nothing, and I pulled away as well. But I think what we're struggling with is, and I read this on some of the Facebook groups, are just some of the comments directed at parents that are just so lethal. That's really hard to kind of grasp, and that it's that anger It's that justification, kind of what both of you talked about, what Aaliyah said, the justification for being estranged from your mom happened. And it was easy to justify everything that she did wrong in order to justify your estrangement. So
Yeah.
what's your comment on that, as far as like when a parent gets just this negative, nasty, seething remark from their child that they believe they had a loving relationship with, that, I mean, it just really seems to come out of the blue, and obviously it could take somebody down, but please share if you have any insight.
Yeah, I think honestly that because we, at least like people that I've talked to in my generation about their estrangement as well, we just reach a certain level of breaking point where it's like, I can't fix you and you don't want to help yourself. So what the F is the point of this? And we also sit in like this echo chamber online every day because we now have more information literally in our pocket than we ever have in the previous history known to man. So being able to just like sit on the phone and be like, what's a cognitive distortion? Go down like that rabbit hole. I think that we also may find ourselves in places that continue to encourage us to be mad. Because I mean, as I previously stated, and we'd be remiss not to remember this, it feels really good to be angry. It feels really good to have that justification and know that you did the right thing, because self-reflection is really hard. And also, oh yeah, please.
Yeah, I just cutting in and saying like, will they ever change? Do we, like, that's the thing that it's like, as a kid, you're like, oh, they're never going to change. How do your kids know that you're changing, right? How do they know that you're doing that inner work? And you can't just like put up a sign like, I'm working on myself, right? Like it would make me feel so much better if I knew my mom was working on herself. Like I mentioned on the last call, when she was working on herself and we were reading that book by Brene Brown together, The Gifts of Imperfections, that's the closest I felt to my mom ever. The fact that she was willing to do that. And that's when I knew that we could have a closer relationship, because she was showing me that willingness to give a little and listen a little bit, because before I just felt like she wasn't listening. And so like, I think the fact that she knew how I was feeling just opened up that back and forth, that openness, because she was willing to change.
I wish there was some way to take this essence of anger, this hateful anger, out of the social media context. I mean, it's so interesting for me to hear that from you, Jillian, also, because for me, anger is so debilitating. I can't live in a constant state of anger. I know my daughter has been, I'm hoping she's not now, but has been in the past in such a state of anger. And for me, I think others of my generation too, it makes you sick. It's draining. It's exhausting. And I'm not in that place of anger anymore.
Can I chime in? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm in such a different level, such a different plane. I don't harbor any feelings of anger towards my child, and it's love and compassion and hope and peace.
I think just before you chime in, Dr. Ruth, I think that's something that we're all like kind of missing the mark on, is that it's not all anger. Like, I was angry and scared and I felt alone, and I just wanted to lash out and let her know, like, what the heck, like, I am so angry at you right now because it feels like you also don't care. And you now this is happening. Great. Now I don't have a mom.
You mean her death, when she died?
Yeah, because, and then I also got stuck with all these shoulds. Like, I should have talked to her sooner. No, I wish I had, but I also was doing what was best for me in that moment, because I couldn't stay that angry. And at the end, it wasn't anger. It was more so just like the hurt and pain of like, now I never get to forgive you. And you never get to forgive me either.
And Jillian, that's exactly what I was going to chime in on, was say that anger and I'm speaking as a professional, and also I'm an estranged mother, I guess, but anger can be anger, but anger very often masks other emotions. And you just said it, the hurt and the sadness and the emotional pain. Anger's easier to deal with. Sometimes we don't even know what the other emotions are that are underlying the anger.
Mhm.
So those are good to get to. And Cheryl, I wonder if your work through the course, even resolving things in level 1, helped you get to the point where you don't feel that anger like you did.
Yeah.
It's absolutely helped me.
Yes, that was it.
I don't have the anger.
Yes, that was the key. Yep.
Yeah, my sister recently even reached out to my daughter. I found out through a text, and I just said, I don't even want to hear about it. I'm past all of that, so now other people are going through their own things, and they're feeling angry, in the family. I'm not angry anymore. So, because I looked to see what was underneath that. Yeah.
I'm curious on the shoulds, because I'm still struggling with that to this day. How, you said it was a 2-year journey for you. Do you have a tool? Do you have a replacement word? Do you have a mind frame that we can step back from the edge? It feels.
The thing that worked for me, and actually it was 2 years, and it was actually, I was working with patients in a community mental health center, and we had a team. It was a DBT team. So we had a lot of cognitive distortions we were working on. And the team, it was a psychiatrist, myself, another therapist, a social worker. So we worked together as our own little group to catch each other saying the word should. And then we out loud reframed it. And the word wish is most often the most useful that I found personally. That I say this sentence again and just substitute the word wish. And you'll feel the difference when you do it. And then you'll start catching yourself, or start listening to other people talking, and you'll be amazed at how often you hear that word should from them.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend going around and pointing it out to them, but
you said it.
Yeah.
Lisa and I can say to each other. Lisa, do you think that would be something in your community that you would offer?
Actually, it is. Let me share this right now. Can you guys all see this?
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is an oversimplified version of what we're talking about, so that we can move to see this differently. Now let's switch from clinical to consciousness. Okay, so everything that Dr. Ruth is describing, all of these cognitive distortions, everything that she works with patients fall in level 1, because we're dealing with subconscious programming. So there's a frequency to all of those things. So let's talk about us just being vibrational beings right now. So how do we create a change? How do we move on from this? It's part of who we are, part of the world, and the world's not getting to be an easier place to live. When we're in fear, we're in level 1. Fear is the ceiling of level 1. Okay, what are cognitive distortions? They're not real. What's the acronym for fear? False evidence appearing real. And we're getting away from that understanding and putting so many new labels on things that it's making it more muddy for us to really just look at things from maybe just a higher perspective of what they are. What's interesting, so now what Dr. Ruth said about changing the word should with wish. At the very bottom of level 2, okay, so this chart moves up in consciousness. And this is just a very basic version of what I do and what I teach in the course, just to keep this simple for this call. The very bottom of level 2 is desire. The very top of level 1 is fear. So to get out of our cognitive distortions, we have to desire for something different, or we have to wish for something different. So that's why Dr. Ruth's word is very effective there. Instead of the shoulds, change it to wish, But understand what you're actually doing is your consciousness, your inner being, your inner knowing, the part of you that already knows the answer of everything to do is already engaged all the time. So now you desire something different. And now that moves you into level 2. Level 2 is representative of our anger, though. Okay, it's still a drain to society, and it's still the negative frequencies. Up to the level of 200 are still very negative frequencies. Law of attraction is a real thing, just like the law of gravity. Law of attraction is a very real thing. We attract the vibrational frequency of what we are. And we move up and down this chart throughout the day, throughout our lives. But when we're in level 1 is when our cognitive distortions are having a heyday with us. Okay, level 1 is flight. Level 2 is fight. And we just keep doing that figure 8 pattern all the time. We go back and forth into level 1, level 2, level 1, level 2, fight or flight, fight or flight. This is safe. Well, I'm going to fight. I'm going to be justified in what I'm doing. I'm taking back my freedom. I'm owning my freedom. Well, who was the authority figure over you your entire life? Your mom, dad's too. But that was your authority figure. So that's what you're breaking away from. So in a way, when you're, this is like your house, and that level 1 is the basement. When you're a child, you're dependent upon those people that you live with to tell you everything that's going on, because your basement doesn't have any windows. You're dependent upon them. But now you're getting to the age to where you want to look out your own windows, and you want to see if everything that those crazy people have told you even holds any water whatsoever, but you have to experience it for yourself. So now you're in level 2. Level 2 is about your success. It's about how you make money in the world. It's about you being somebody in the world. And hate and anger, because hate is the emotion that we experience when we're angry. Hate is the emotion that we experienced when we're angry. When we were young adults, therapy meant you were crazy. It meant you were a crazy person. You didn't go to a counselor or therapist. And if you did, you certainly didn't tell anybody about it. Now you better have a therapist and a counselor, or something's wrong with you. You can't even get through the day without it now. But it's just the difference of what our generations went through. Level 3 is that forgiveness. Level 4 is that unconditional love. And again, it's experience and it's practice until we can actually get to even understanding what unconditional love means. And how do we do that? We do it through practice. Exactly what Dr. Ruth said. You have to practice. We have to practice this. And this is what we do in our community. And this is the teaching. And part of what Cheryl and Dr. Ruth were talking about, all of these things that fall into level 1, all of the coulda, shoulda, wouldas. And that's where we keep ourselves. The guilt, the disappointment, all of that. And again, and it's held by that feeling of fear, false evidence appearing real, that ceiling of our cognitive distortions that keep us in level 1. And we have to go through these levels, and we have to heal the wound that's in each level. And the more birthdays we've had, the luckier we are to have more wounds to heal. And even though I've been doing this work, I've been teaching this for 30 years, I still could not believe how much work I had to do after my estrangement. I could not believe it. And I approached my chart differently by going through every single one of those levels of consciousness to find the pain and the wound that was hidden there and lurking. And we've all talked about how astonishing it is that once you do that, it's now gone. And now we're able to function from a higher level instead of underneath those cognitive distortions. Do I still do the shouldas? Yes. I mean, we'll jump all over that chart all day long, but now the difference is you have an awareness. Everybody who's on this call, your consciousness just increased because now you have the awareness of what some of these things are. Everything you can do to raise your awareness, raise your vibrational frequency. And the key is it going to happen? Are you going to watch the news? Because you now know that you don't necessarily want to not tune in. I'm talking about at higher levels of consciousness. You don't necessarily not tune in, because it's not about just staying in your happy bubble, thinking positive all the time. It's very much about being aware of what's going on in the world, because you know that your frequency can now help raise the collective versus staying in that anger. The biggest gift you can give to yourself is to get to that midway point. Okay? That midway point, the fastest way to get there is meditation. Do you see that gap between level 2 and level 3? That's what you want to focus on. We would love to have you in our community and our course going through this. I'll share the link in a minute. But if there's nothing else that you want to do, and you just say, and we all have this within us. It's already built in. We're already these perfect people that we had to have these life events reminding us that this is who we are. But if you're like, no, I don't want to do any personal work. I don't have time. I don't have money. I don't have anything. The best gift that you can give yourself and all of us is meditation. Meditation gets you into that gap in the midway point of this chart. That's the number one gift to give to yourself and the world, is meditation. Does that help? Does that help leave us maybe on not such a...
Yeah, that was really good. And I was thinking
super helpful
when you were talking about the levels, that as I've worked through them, you're right. You do fall, maybe slide down into level 1 for something, but I pop back up pretty quickly now. It's not a place I stay long.
Same here.
It's so nice, isn't it, Cheryl?
Yes.
To
Oh my
bask in
God.
freedom. Yes.
It's like a 5-minute cry about, something upsetting, whereas before it would be a week in bed.
Yeah. Lose sleep. Yeah.
Yeah. And it especially, it also helps with what's going on in the world. You can kind of process, right?
Yep. Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. It's really informative. Thanks very much for inviting me. I've listened to everybody, and I just want to say thank you to Aaliyah and Gillian, because I think it's really good to hear a different perspective on what's our perspective and theirs. It helps us to be a little bit more educated, because I'm same as you, Cheryl, and that same generation, and and I felt just through going through this for myself, because I've got a son who he's estranged to me, and he's my only child, so it's very, very difficult for me. But it's just the same as all of you guys. But I think like tonight with Dr. Ruth, when she said about should, I think I've just been growing up with should as part of my vocabulary, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I really want to say thank you, because that's just really hit home to me, that I say it all the time. And then I've just realized tonight that to me it sounds like I've been very judgmental by saying that.
Yeah.
Because it's like I'm taking away the right of somebody else. I'm putting my should onto them,
Right.
and not giving them, not giving them the choice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of like quite, I just realized now that's actually quite judgmental. Though up till now, I didn't really see it that way. It's just that's the way you've been brought up.
Yeah.
Oh, you should do this, and you should do that, you know. And no, nobody should do anything, to be honest. It's their choice if they want to do something or they don't do it. But by you turning around and saying, I've got notes here, I wish, and that to me, not that I have any communication with my son, because he just recently said no contact whatsoever to us. So, which is very sad, because like you girls, we can't even talk, and there's been no communication at all. So he's gone and had counselling. He won't have counselling with me, which I'm prepared to do, but he won't do it. So as far as we're concerned, we can't really do anything about it. We just gotta, suck it up pretty much at the moment. But this tonight has been really good for me. Just seeing little points, and I think that's part of growth and change. Within, I've got to look at myself. I can't do anything for him, and he can't really do anything for me at the moment because he's obviously not in that place. All I can do is grow myself and change.
That's right.
Change my ways. And I think by, growing up in the 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever, our life, as you said before, totally different education, totally different way of thinking. And I've found it really, really difficult in language, listening to the young kids talk. Like they've had so much education out there that's offered to them. But like Cheryl said before, we never had that. We only had books, if we were lucky, from the library. But we never read them because it didn't relate to us, And as far as therapy, like you said before, you only went if you were crazy. And, but now it's part of life. So it's really hard transitioning into that other generation and listening to them and trying to decipher and trying to change the vocabulary for myself. It's been really difficult.
Thank you, Jan. You said so many good things there. And to your point, all we can do is work on ourselves. And like Leah said, we can't really just hold up a sign. If you aren't blocked from your kids, you can start posting very positive things on social media. Share our YouTube channel. Show other younger generations that they're not all evil and they are willing to come to the table. But being in the place of right now with me, where there's no contact and our cognitive distortions, I think what's really important that we take away from today is what Aaliyah and Jillian have offered, in that, and even when we were little kids, we felt like the world was on our shoulders and we had to fix everything. We've got to understand that that's how they feel. Mm-hmm. And in return, that is producing a very angry person, a very angry, hurt person, because underneath that anger is something else, as we've just learned today. It's not anger. It's probably self-guilt. It's probably shame. If you don't get out of shame, if you don't blame somebody else, you could commit suicide. So we have to take this so serious. We really have to take this so serious and just understand, as parents, right now, we've got to give some space to let our kids experience the freedom, come to some of these realizations by themselves. The good news and the bad news is they are dialed into the internet. They get all of their information from the internet, and eventually the good gets out there too. Eventually our message gets out there too.
And I'll add on to that, Lisa. And I think, I tell my mom sometimes, because she's gone through it with more than just me, right? I feel like each and every one of her children have done this, except maybe one. And just don't give up hope, because I think there is something you can do. And you're doing it, Jan. You're working on yourself. And that's the most you can do. And I think that puts out hope for every child that maybe has estranged. Maybe that could be in the back of their mind. Okay, maybe my mom or my dad or my grandparent is working on themselves and they are taking that step. So just keep doing what you're doing and don't give up hope.
Yeah, and I think you answered this question, and Cher, I'll let you go right after this, but I want to bring this question in. I know a lot of children go no contact. What are your thoughts about parents going no contact for our own mental health? Yes, absolutely. That's what we're talking about, working on yourself. It seems that as parents go no contact, then the kids get angry, like we don't have the right to cut off communication. We as parents are always supposed to be at the beck and call for the children. I feel it is the right of the parent to make that choice for self. We always have to put on our oxygen mask first, absolutely. But I think there's a way that you can present that. I mean, if you are in contact with your child, of simply, and please, Jillian and Leah, let me know your thoughts, of if that's where you are. And I think what Aaliyah said, I think that would just be an elixir to their ears to say, I got to take care of me right now. You're a grown up. I know you're figuring out things for you too. I will always be here no matter what. I'm your parent. But right now, I just need to take some time to focus on me, versus contributing to the anger and everything that's going on in the world and just blocking them, going no contact, giving them the virtual finger. That's very different than just, if you have contact, being able to say, here's where I am. I'm scared too. I'm hurting too. I have to do my work too. I had a bad childhood, or I had this or that. Please understand, I just need to take time for me as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great alternative to just like cutting someone off completely, like right out of the blue. But also, like, even if he's gone no contact with you and isn't like talking, like Aaliyah said, don't give up hope. And sometimes we just need our space to like also do some of that work ourselves before we're ready to be like, okay, now I take on the responsibility of like fixing my parent or, whatever. So I would say, just continue to do your work, and, progress is shown in movements, not in words. So.
Yeah. Cheryl, were you going to say something?
Nope. No, I just learn so much every time we have this call. It's just such an honest and open, trusting conversation. And I look forward to the next many.
And the next one is going to follow on the heels of this, and in which we are going to talk about how the internet is influencing us and our cognitive distortions and feeding our fear and our toxicity and our negativity. And everybody has some homework to do. Okay, we're watching a video that's on YouTube, and it's called The Facebook Dilemma. It was a Dateline. It was done on Dateline, and it's a 2-part series. So there's part 1 and there's part 2. Everybody, please watch it when you get a chance. And then next time, we meet here on the 3rd Saturday of every month, and it's going to be our next topic for discussion. And Connie, let me comment on her last comment about going no contact with your kids. So this came from a perspective of my child had been so toxic and hurtful that I won't want a relationship going forward. This is not a time out, but a permanent choice. Yeah, I'm seeing that so much. And Connie, that's really what we're trying to shift right now, is the world's just heading into a scary place, and we need each other. And I'm sorry, it just breaks my heart to see so much of this. And I'm not blaming you, Connie. I really get the pain of it. But who are we if we close our hearts? We can't create a change if we shut down. It's okay for you to be hurt. It's okay for you to take a time out. Please join our community if you just don't know the first step to do it. If you're working with a great therapist or psychologist, please do that. But you're hurting yourself with that hurt and that anger, and that manifests as disease. It contributes to a bigger whole, the collective. I know you're not alone. I know you're speaking for a lot of people on that. And I just watched one of the Facebook groups I'm in go from 4,000 people to 6,000 people. And the sentiment is mostly how you feel. And that's scary. Because now we not only are facing a world that's going to war, but now we're at war within our own selves. And we don't come out of that. And like Cheryl mentioned earlier, we still might have our moments Even though we've gone through the different levels of consciousness, we still might have our moments, but they're briefer moments. They're not a week in bed. And I think all of us will tell you that it's much better to live in a state of forgiveness and peace than it is to live in a state of anger and sadness. So I appreciate you so much, Connie, saying that comment, because I think you're speaking for the bigger collective. I really do. But I think that's what we really have to work on changing. Okay. Any final comments?
I pray for a little more peace in the world by the next time we meet. And I love you all.
All right, I'm going to send out a follow-up email to all of you with the links to the homework, to our next roundtable. I appreciate those of you who contributed. I appreciate my panel so much, so much. So grateful for all of you. You're such a gift in my life.
Yep.
Same here.
Yep.
Have a great day, everybody.
Hi. Don't be
Bye.
shitty.
Don't be shitty.
Don't be pretty.